Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar, The Landscape of MedTech Innovation and Ecosystem in the Greater Bay Area, that organized by GBA MedTech Association. GBA MedTech Association is a nonprofit organization focused on promoting the MedTech trade and awareness in the Greater Bay Area. This webinar is organized by GBA MedTech Association, co-organized with GBA Business School, together with supporting organizations included British Standard Institution, Hong Kong Cyberport, Hong Kong Medical Aesthetic Association, Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, Hong Kong PolyU Institute for Entrepreneurship, Master Insight. We have the honor to invite 4 guest speakers in this webinar. We also have Dr. Kevin Low to lead our panel discussion with the 4 guest speakers. Let me introduce the first speakers. Mr. Philip Ng. Philip is the former partner and head of technology of KPMG China with over 25 years of experience in business consulting, such as strategic planning, technology, ecosystem building, go-to-market strategy for mega, unicorns, and startup companies. Philip is a member of AICPA, a chartered management accountant, a certified information system auditor. Philip, I will pass the stage to you now. Philip, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. So previously I was with KPMG building the technology ecosystem for KPMG China, and now I'm running and venture partners with some investment arms with those startup companies in the high growth area. So one of the areas is on the biotech area. So today is my pleasure to share with you some of the observations on the GBA MedTech landscape. So just checking on the screen on the slides. Can you see the slides on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So today I'm given the topic of the innovation DNA of the GBA area. So probably for the sake of quick introduction of different audience, maybe I do a very quick overview of all different cities in terms of their competitive advantage in the GBA area. So as you all well know that Hong Kong as the multinational financial shipping and trading center in the GBA area, and also in the proximity to Shenzhen, which is well known for its innovation and technology, in particular in the R&D of all those leading technologies in China. So another area like the area surrounding Guangzhou is also one of the fast developing technology area in proximity with some of the nearby cities like Dongguan and Foshan to build another hub across there. The third hub is surrounding the Macau and the Zhuhai area, which I would go into more details regarding the implications of the biotech or the medtech ecosystem in these 3 major hubs. So this is a very quick overview of the innovation landscape in the GBA area. If you can look at some of the figures, this shows the patent cooperation treaty number. So if you look at the number of the PCT in the recent 5 in the year between 2015 to 2019, actually the GBA area has reached the total number of 1.3 million in terms of total number of the PCTs. So compared to other Bay Area like the Tokyo Bay Area, the Silicon Valley Bay Area, and the New York Bay Area, actually the GBA cities total number of the PCTs is leading the other three Bay Areas. So in terms of the magnitude, so the GBA is ahead of the Tokyo by around 2.4 times in terms of total number, and versus the Silicon Valley around 5.7 times, and versus the New York area around around 8.6 times. So that's also an indication for all the audience that how fast the innovation and technology are growing in the Greater Bay Area. The right-hand side graph shows the different regions in the GBA area in terms of all these PCTs. So you can see that in the Pearl River Delta, west side of the Pearl River Delta, which include those Zhuhai, Zhongshan, Foshan, Jiangmen, and Zhaoqing and Shunde area. The total number of that is around is less than 500K in the total number, and those in the more developed area in the East Coast, that's over 755K in terms of total number of the PCTs. So for regarding Hong Kong and Macau, the trend is more level off, total number around 38K. So this gives you also a very brief idea on how the whole technology and innovation landscape across different regions in the GBA area and as compared to other Bay Areas across the world. So this is a quick showing of the GBA, the 9 cities in the GBA in terms of number of the biotech companies. So you can see that Shenzhen is leading as the number one player in terms of number of the listed biotech companies, and followed by Guangzhou and Zhuhai. So all these figures are up to the end of December 2020. So now regarding all the different 9+2 cities, what we saw in terms of the key opportunities, if you summarize those, what we believe is around 3 hubs. The first hub is surrounding the Hong Kong and Shenzhen. The second major development hub is surrounding the Guangzhou area and including Zhongshan and also Dongguan area. So the third one is surrounding Macau and Zhuhai area. Maybe give you a very quick context of each of the competitive advantage for each of the individual cities. So as you can see that in Shenzhen, actually is very sophisticated and well-developed medical device R&D and manufacturing hub across, actually nationally. The medical device R&D and manufacturing market actually occupies around 70% of total national market in Shenzhen. And also we are seeing that Shenzhen city also start to develop on those pharmaceutical and early stage biomedical companies start to aggregate in the area. And the government also is putting very heavy emphasis and support on those early stage companies. The Shenzhen government actually has pushed out a quite aggressive investment plan that they put in 5 billion RMB investment fund coupled with all those financial investors. So make up the total of 12.5 billion investment funds for only for those early stage companies in Shenzhen areas. And also Shenzhen has a very unique advantage, as you can see the development of Tencent, Huawei, BYD, all these top-notch innovation technology companies are actually originated from the city. And now we are seeing a stronger trend for the information technology company actually to be working more closely with the pharmaceutical and biotech companies to be located in Shenzhen for example, to use the AI and the big data in the drug discovery area and also various image diagnostic areas. That's something that we are seeing happening very quickly in the Shenzhen city or the areas surrounding Shenzhen. The second hub surrounding the Guangzhou, what we are seeing is that leveraging on the very good universities and talent pools surrounding Guangzhou and Zhongshan, we are seeing an aggregation of the tier 1 pharmaceutical companies in the new development zones across Guangzhou. So Guangzhou also is very actively developing in the biotech areas in this aspect. Another worth noting areas on the Zhuhai and the Macau area, which we understand that they are also trying to cooperate and pilot on those Chinese medicine area, and also Zhuhai is actively try to get in more pharmaceutical companies to be located in the city. And we also heard that there will be, in the very recent time, there will be some major national level policy being announced surrounding the Zhuhai and the Hengqin area, which we believe that will be promoting boosting up the ecosystem building in the surrounding the Zhuhai and Macau cooperation zone. So last but not least, regarding Hong Kong, we saw that actually Hong Kong has a very good foundation in terms of the biotech or the MedTech R&D, coupled with very strong and good universities in Hong Kong. And we have a very well-developed clinical trial mechanism and system in Hong Kong. And also we have already aggregated some very good international talent pools here. So we are seeing that there's a very good opportunity for Hong Kong to be working very closely with major cities like Shenzhen or Guangzhou in their respective areas with competitive advantage in the medical device or the pharmaceutical areas to extend the competitive advantage of Hong Kong. For example, something that we are seeing a very significant opportunities for the upside is that even if we look at Shenzhen, it's already accounting for around 70% of the medical device market in China. But all those medical device products currently are still what we call a lower to the middle end products. If Hong Kong can serve as a role to bridge the gap between the European counterparts or other leading US counterparts to pull in some independent laboratories or the R&D centers to work with all these players in Shenzhen or Guangzhou area, that should be a very high growth area to enable an upgrade of the whole ecosystem or the whole industry for the national or the global market. So these are some of the observations that we are seeing across the biotech and the MedTech area in the GBA. So today, I give a very brief overview and introduction. And if there are any questions, we can leave to the Q&A section or the panel discussion area. Okay, thank you. So David, I will pass to you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. A very good overview and insight about the opportunity in the GBA. So now I would like to introduce you to Dr. Ronald Che, founder and CEO at M-Visioner. Ronald has more than 10 years of experience in medical engineering, research and development. he founded M-Visioner Technology in 2015, focusing on the development of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and robotics applications in orthopedic surgery. So please welcome Ronald. Go ahead, Ronald. Ronald, I think you will need to unmute. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. It is a very good time to meet everyone, and I would like to share some of the slides that talking about working in GBA area, in particular in the startup industry. So wait a second, I go to share my screen.
Well, for your information, for those are online, we welcome Ronald and also Philip. They are now actually working in China. They would like to come to Hong Kong, but because of the border has not been widely open yet, so that's why we are glad to have them to join us online. So please go ahead, Ronald.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So my name is Ronald, and I graduated in Chinese University, Hong Kong, with a degree of biomedical engineering. So my background is more on the MRI technology, and then 5 years ago, I started up the M-Visioner, and in Chinese we call it 妙知科技. So we focus on using medical images for the orthopedic surgeons, in particular for the surgical robotics. So because today is to share how to work a MedTech in GBA, so I will first share some of my experience using a map and the history of how to start up a company in GBA. And then I will intro some of the products of our company and focus on why there is a boom, try to explain why there is a boom in the medical technology, in particular in the Greater Bay Area. Okay. Wait a second. Wait. Some technical difficulties. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So, okay. Sorry, there may be some technical difficulties in my computer. I tried to make it work. Hey, David.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It seems that I may need to restart the computer for some reason. I don't know why. Will it be okay if we pass to another speaker and then I come back?
Okay, no problem. Yeah, go ahead. So, yes, Ronald, you can off the stage for a time being. So maybe I can have KY. KY, I will need your help. And good, thanks. So let me introduce KY, KY Tan. KY is the Director of Business Development at BrainLab Asia Pacific. And KY is the Director for BrainLab Asia Pacific, has over 2 decades of experience holding senior commercial and corporate position with BrainLab, Humanetics, and IDS Med. And KY is also very well experienced in business development. So we are very delighted to have KY to share his experience about working in China, especially in the Greater Bay Area of his experience. Go ahead, KY.
Thank you, David, for the very kind introduction, and good afternoon to everyone who tuned in to this webinar. And I'm very delighted to be invited by the GBA MedTech Association here to join this very distinguished panel here on the discussions on today's topic. My little contribution to today's discussion will be on the Chinese intellectual property ecosystem and GBA MedTech innovation activities. You have heard a little bit from Philip earlier on when he touched on, the macro view of the ecosystem in GBA comparing to other Greater Bay Area. But I'm gonna add further color here to be more specific on the intellectual property ecosystem in today's China. And I will also touch on what is the current state of GBA MedTech innovation activities. And the MedTech here, I am giving it a more narrower definition. I'm focusing more on the medical device company, IVD company, and also medical consumable companies. And lastly, I'm going to tie my first and the second part together by underscoring the importance of IP to MedTech innovation. So I will start with the first part of my presentation today. So IP ecosystem in today's China. Whenever in any discussion, the word innovation and China are mentioned, inevitably, you have this question, whether the innovation will be protected by Chinese IP system. And in the course of my duty, I am often asked the question, all right, is an innovation protected by Chinese IP law? And actually, you heard 2 weeks ago in the earlier seminar, Dr. Gu Wengman, our former health secretary, was asked a similar question. So this question is not going away. Why? Why this question are being asked repeatedly? I believe it has to do with our impressions that China is incapable of innovation. China is a copycat. All right. A lot of these impressions that we had came from 15, 20 years ago with all those pirated CD-ROM, all those grade A counterfeit of watches, of fashion designer bags, all right, imitated iPhone and so forth. And it did not help because the Western mainstream media, up to today, they keep reminding us that China commits IP theft, China lack an adequate IP system. To be fair, a lot of these accusations were true, but I will say all these were mostly true in the past, but it is no longer so. And I want to share with you a couple of points and facts to underscore the changes in the Chinese IP system. The Chinese IP ecosystem here are very vibrant. It's very, very, I would say, very conducive for innovation. First of all, we need to appreciate that China has moved from a technology follower to a technology pioneer in several fields, particularly in telecommunication. All right. So the motivations of Chinese government here to improve the IP is meant to protect its own innovation. That is my first point. And because of that, we have seen there's so many intellectual property law have undergone amendments. All right, so I have given you some example and very recent. Trademark law were amended in 2019. Patent law as recent as 2020 that came into effect on 1st January 2021. All right, Civil Code 2021 spoke about technology, contract, and so forth. All right, so on the law side, there have been a lot of update being done. At the same time, in terms of administration, in terms of the government body that administer and enforce IP protection, Chinese government reformed and restructured, all right, putting different, formerly known as the trademark office, patent office under one single umbrella called CNIPA, which stands for Chinese National Intellectual Property Administration in 2018. All right, and in terms of court, and this is amazing from my perspective because I'm trained as a lawyer. I'm very impressed. I got to tell you this because no country in the world established a special division on IP court at the highest level of its court system. And in China, there is a Supreme People's Court, Intellectual Property Court, established on the first day of January 2019. So it has been operating for like, almost 2.5 years now. And earlier on, back in 2014, there was specialist IP court established in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Guangzhou. All right. So you could imagine all this, reform has actually led to a lot of IP litigation. Last year in 2020, there were 466,000 cases in China. I think that is a world record because when I look at the US number, all right, and the data available to me was dated 2018, there were only 20,000 cases. That means IP protection is, is something that is very, very being actively pursued in China at this moment. All right, and patent trademark filing. All right, China has been the world #1 since 2011. And earlier, Philip alluded about the PCT patent. And I have the next slide here, which is taken from the World Intellectual Property Organization report dated 2020 with a full data available for the year of 2019. In terms of the invention patent, out of 3.2 million invention patents filed worldwide, China captured 43%. And in another category of patent called UMP, which is also known as a mini patent, all right, and design patent, right, China is also doing very impressively. UMP is 97%, all right, and the industrial design patent is over 50%. All right, clearly China is way ahead now in terms of the intellectual property activities or innovation activities. Now, I need to be very careful with what I say because all this filing, patent filing, for example, indicate innovation activities. It does not mean that China is now the most innovative country yet, all right? Because that is something you can't really quantify it, okay? Now, with that said, we have pretty good understanding now that China has improved its IP ecosystem here to protect innovation. Now I will turn on to the second part of my presentation here. All right, the current state of GBA MedTech innovation activities. Now this slide is actually, I'm focusing, as I was saying, more narrowly on listed MedTech where data are available for the year 2019 here. There were 74 MedTech listed in Shanghai, in Shenzhen, and in Hong Kong, out of which a quarter of them are based in GBA, all right? If you could see my cursor here, all right? And the revenue by this GBA, as a percentage of the country, is about 29% for revenue, 32% for in terms of the net profit. But when it comes to R&D spending, when it comes to patent filing, both stand at about 35%. So what this slide is telling us is that listed MedTech based in GBA are doing a lot more in innovation input and innovation output represented by R&D investment and patent filing respectively. What is also interesting in this chart is that you see the government grant, all right? And Philip earlier on did mention that there was a $5 billion fund here, but here there is a clear data available here, all right? Listed MedTech in GBA receive, all right, 30% out of the total from the government to help them to innovate, to help them to industrialize, and sometimes to even commercialize their innovation. All right. Now, the next slide, this one, I'm looking at the non-listed MedTech. All right. According to this report from Joint Chain, all right, there are about 25,000 MedTech manufacturing company in China, out of which 4,200 or so were given the designation as a high-tech MedTech in the category of SME. A majority of the companies are SME, by the way. I presume Ronald's company probably will be given this designation as well, because this designation is given by the Science and Technology Department by the local government. Okay, now if we look at the first bar here, Guangdong, all right, there are 23%. So there is a lion's share of the total in the country designated as high-tech MedTech by the government. So that is another indications of the level of innovation in the GBA area. To be fair, Guangdong does not, mean GBA, but we can infer that a lot of MedTech company are actually based more likely in the in a Shenzhen, Guangzhou area, which fall into the GBA area. All right. With that said, I'd like to now turn to the topic of the important IP to MedTech innovation company. Now, why is IP, especially patent, is important to MedTech company? First of all, patent is a class of asset, and innovation is very hard to be quantified. All right, so you do not know what is worth. You may keep it as a trade secret, for example, but you are unlikely to go out and raise funds, for example, based on just an innovation. All right, but if your innovation is patented, now you are able to go to tell your angel investor or venture investor that, here is my patent. All right, I want to raise fund. Or even you can take it to IPO. I give you an example here. This is an ongoing example. This is a spin-off from Shanghai-based microport called Microport MedBot. Basically, they put together a couple of medical robotic technology together. None of their product had been NMPA approved. None of them have been commercialized. So basically, they have not sold a single dollar, but they are basically, deploying their technology, their patent, their intellectual property here to go for an IPO. All right, being a class of asset, you can also pledge your patent here as a collateral for loan, and you can obviously sell it. All right, but to us, to MedTech entrepreneurs, all right, to executive, what patent means to us essentially is that it gives us time for us to commercialize, to monetize, all right, through technology transfer or licensing here. All right, so specifically for invention patent, which is considered as the most valuable type of patent, because the law, the government give you 20 years of protection. All right, so that within that 20 years, you can exploit your so-called patent here without any other infringement. Okay. Now, utility model and design pattern, which are slightly less relevant here, all right, allow you 10 years to exploit the intellectual property. Okay. Now, another aspect is that if your innovation is patented, that means you are protected by law. If there's anyone who infringe your patent, you sue them. All right. And the classic example here from GBA, from China actually, is Myray against Idan Instrument. All right. And the case went on for a number of years, and eventually the court awarded Myray 28 million renminbi. It's still a small sum. All right. But then, as you have seen earlier on, the number of litigations are going up. And actually, a lot of MedTech in GBA are very savvy user of intellectual property law. So there have been a lot of lawsuits, particularly between Myray and Idan. So it is just not about patent protection per se, but sometimes you could also understand it as some competitive move as well. Okay. Now, lastly, I will turn to some advice that I would give to some MedTech startup in particular here. First of all, we need to be reminded, profiting from innovation is not easy. And a lot of innovative MedTech actually fail. And the classic example is the company called EMI Lab back in 1970s that commercialized CT scanner. It failed. And they have to sell their business within 10 years. All right. So the reason why they fail is because they failed to protect their innovation. The patent that they received were not adequate to protect their product. All right. Allowing some American company to launch the CT scanner against them. And their product were also over-engineered and so forth. All right. So basically, they were not able to compete with their competitors. Okay. So bear in mind that profiting from innovation is challenging. All right. Now, in America, there have been a lot of study done. All right. And this is my second point here. The earlier the IP protection for innovation, the more likely the company is successful. A lot of study have been done here. So if you are able to protect your innovations through IP law, you have better chance of success. All right. And in more details, how could you protect your innovation here? Okay. As a startup, as a technopreneur, I will encourage you to use non-disclosure agreement. All right. The reason is this: an innovation, if you reveal it to the world, okay, then it's no longer new. When it's no longer new, the patent office will not grant you a patent. Okay. So make sure that before you disclose your innovation, you get the counterparty here to sign an NDA with you. All right. And don't go out and do some PR or some marketing, you see, before you file filing, before you file the patent. All right. It has the same effect. And where do you do patenting? All right. Just now, I think earlier on we have seen, you see, why there are more patent in GBA, East Bank, and West Bank, but less so in Macau and Hong Kong. The reason is this: you patent, you apply the patent in a country with the greatest market potential. So assuming that you have a very innovative product, okay, not only Chinese market required, but American market too, then obviously you file the patent in China and in America, because patent law, it works on a territorial basis. All right. So if you have a Chinese patent, you cannot get it enforced in America and vice versa. So you have to patent in the country where you are likely to commercialize it. Okay. And finally, my last point here is that as a startup, your first instinct is to commercialize the technology, right? And sometimes it's not as easy because there are many steps, okay? And I would encourage that startup or technopreneur here consider licensing or some element of technology transfer with some established company who can give you some loyalty, all right? Because funding are most important, all right, for most of the startup, you see. So this will be some of the advice that I'm gonna give to MedTech startup here. So I wrap up here, and thank you for listening. All right, have a pleasant afternoon. And if there's any question, I'm happy to take it at a later stage. Thank you. I will hand it back to you, David.
Thank you, KY. And again, we will now have Ronald. Ronald, are you ready so I can put you back on the stage?
Yeah.
Okay, so please go ahead, Ronald.
I needed to get the sharing. So I think.
Okay, let me. Yeah, so KY, you can release your sharing. So.
Okay. Okay. No, it's good. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit technical difficulties. So I keep on the PowerPoint. So our company started in. So I will first introduce our company, and then some of the things that we come through during make this startup. So our company actually started in Cyberport 5 years ago. So at that time, we have an idea that we wanted to use virtual reality for orthopedic surgeons to make surgical plans. So we start in a Cyberport microfund scheme. But then we find out that it is hard to get a NMPA accreditation if you just base your company in Hong Kong. So that's why we have to move it to Shenzhen. And luckily, we get our first angel investment in Shenzhen. And then following that, we have our company in Shenzhen. Then we can get NMPA class registration, accreditation, and also CE accreditation. And we are now working on a class 3 accreditation on our surgical robotics. So in these few years, we really have a lot of cooperation with multiple cities in Greater Bay Area. So I will try to explain. So this is a typical Google map. So we base in Hong Kong, and then we move to Shenzhen to have investment and also set up our NMPA. And I want to draw your attention to, in Shenzhen, we have like west and east side. East side of Shenzhen, there is an area called Pingshan. Pingshan area. This area is, I think, is the Shenzhen government now focusing on the biomedical companies or a hub for biomedical companies in Pingshan. So a lot of MedTech, they set up their factories out there with a very good policy and also relative good fee if you rent their office or factories. But the problem is, for myself, is that actually it's not that near to the city side, to the downtown in Shenzhen. It's like 2 hours travel. So we did consider to set up our factory in this place, but for many reasons, not many talents or engineers would like to travel that long. So this caused some trouble. But for pharmaceutical company and biomedical company, it may be a very good site to consider. So actually for ourselves, because we are a software and hardware company, so we base our software development mostly in Shenzhen. And for the hardwares, we are now considering Dongguan. So Dongguan seems a little bit far away. It's like 53 kilometers from Shenzhen and Dongguan. If you take a car from Shenzhen, so you can arrive Dongguan within 15 minutes. But then Dongguan, with a lot of electronics and other hardware manufacturer, basically you can get all the suppliers done within this city, within this area. So that's why currently our surgical robotics and navigation factory are set up in Dongguan. And also they are now having a very good policies to attract a Hong Kong or Macau-based company to set up the factories or development centers in Dongguan cities. So this is what we experienced. And then for all the NMPA registration, currently we have to do it in Guangzhou. So, and also Guangzhou managed the NMPA affairs for the whole Guangdong province. So we always have to travel to Guangzhou for this NMPA negotiation or MMPA applications. But then another thing is that most prestige hospitals within this GBA area, except Hong Kong or Macau, are located in Guangzhou. So that's why we have a lot of cooperation with hospitals in Guangzhou, in particular in clinical trials or some clinical applications, or if we wanted to apply some government topics like research on using between MedTech and virtual reality, then we work with universities and hospitals in Guangzhou. In particular, currently, we are working with Nanfang Yike Daxue, so Nanfang Hospital in Guangzhou. So you see, every city have their characteristics in this whole GBA area. And then I also want to draw your attention to Zhuhai. So actually, Zhuhai has a very good convention place, and a lot of national level medical meetings convened in Zhuhai. So for us, we already participate like 2 or 3 times in Zhuhai City, like the annual orthopedics meeting. So you can see actually within this GBA area, each part played a very important role in the MedTech, including software, registration, manufacturing, or convention. And for Hong Kong, it has a very special position. For example, if you wanted to use to have CE or FDA, Hong Kong will be much better to do the CE registration. So that's our experience in the whole area. And within these 5 years, we travel through every cities and explore the goods in it and try to set up cooperation within this area. So I think since I have been worked in Shanghai for a while and then come back to GBA. So GBA have its own advantage compared to the whole country in terms of the MedTech development. So another thing I wanted to draw attention is that currently NMPA set up another registration center in Shenzhen, in Futian actually, is next by the border. So it will deal with about the NMPA registration within the whole Greater Bay Area, in particular Class 3 device. So we did not need to always go to the Beijing side, but instead we can finish it in Shenzhen. So this is a very good news to the MedTech company. So I will spend the rest of the time, because we work on surgical robotics, we work on hard tissue surgical robotics. I want to explain why we work on it, or some features, and why there is a boom in the surgical robotics, in particular in the whole country. So surgical robotics contain three parts. One is the surgical planning, the other is the navigation, and the third part is the robotics control. So we have surgical planning with the VR interaction. I draw your attention to this figure. So we basically use CT images, do a 3D reconstruction, and also use deep learning to do the anatomical parts recognition. So we recognize different anatomical parts and can perform automatic surgical planning and also evaluate some surgical parameters. So why I showed you this diagram, not only because it's our product, but because it showed one thing, why MedTech become, the development speed of MedTech become faster and faster in recent years. It's because of the deep learning and also the data. So with all the hip joint data, we cooperate with different hospitals in China. And in particular, there are so many patients in China. So we can acquire the data in a short period of time and set up a model with a very high accuracy because of this data scale. So I think this is one of the very important points that lead to the fast development, in particular in software technology in the MedTech industry in China. So this is our customer in Beijing using this with our VR visualization. They can do the surgical planning. So the other is surgical navigation system. So surgical navigation system has been a while in the market, but it is now become a very core part in the surgical robotics. So we developed our own surgical navigation system. And for your reference, actually there are quite some companies are working on the surgical navigation system in China. So, here are some of the clinical trial movies that we have in while we worked in Beijing hospital. So I want to draw your attention is that in China, another thing is that there is a lot of hospital, they are very actively engaged in MedTech research. So they will offer like clinicians or they offer surgeons to help a company to start to research on different technologies and to commercialize. In Chinese, it's called 产学研. So it is a very common practice in China. In particular, it's encouraged by the government. The company cooperate with university and also with the hospital to roll out the products and file the patent. So I think we enjoyed a lot of benefits here. And I think in particular, we cooperate with a Beijing hospital and hospital in Guangzhou. So this is our robotic system, and it is another hot topic right now in the MedTech industry. In China, there are orthopedics robotic system, there are neurology robotic system, and also there are a robotic system for the soft tissues. So why it's becoming so popular? I think one of the reasons is that right now the robotic system, in particular this robotic arm, is becoming more available in the market. In particular, right now the robotic arms developed by China company has comparable accuracy compared to the leading robotic system in the world. According to our using experience. So like us currently, all our hardware are sourced within the supply chain in China. So it's becoming more robust and it's becoming more efficient when you set up the whole hardware and the supply chain. So I think this is one of the advantage of setting up a MedTech company in Greater Bay Area or in China. So this is some of our just demo of the system. So basically, this robotic arm, we cooperate with one Shanghai robotic arms company. So the accuracy is very good, can do it within millimeter level using the optical tracker. And optical tracker, we also now use a company. We work with a company in Guangzhou to develop our own optical tracker. So basically, we can realize the whole product, the major parts are produced and manufactured in China. So finally, the last slide, I want to talk about the market size of the surgical robotics. So here I have my marketing team give me a Chinese slide and I translated to English. So there are some Chinese here. So actually, currently in orthopedics, there are 3.1 million cases per year in US, according to the journals. So then when you compare it to China, we are talking about 16.12 million cases in China. And actually right now, every case, every orthopedic case, if you use surgical navigation system or robotic system, there will be a 5,000 RMB per case. So we are talking about a very 80.6 billion RMB annual revenues here. So it is a very huge market, and I think this is one of the very important reasons why we can attract so many startups to start the navigation or robotic business in China. So it's because I think one of the things is the market size. So finally, I conclude here just that I think starting up MedTech industry in China is currently a very good moment. A very good moment because of the government policy. A very good moment because of the market size. And a very good moment because right now a lot of talents are actually located in the Greater Bay Area. Because MedTech is always an interdisciplinary industry. You have robotics, AI, clinical, or registration, this kind of stuff. So this kind of interdisciplinary area is interdisciplinary. I think you can find most of the talent within the GBA areas. And this is some of the thoughts or experience that we have. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. Thank you, Ronald. And Ronald is really committed in GBA. Not only his company was founded in Shenzhen, but he moved his whole family to Shenzhen before the pandemic. And I wish every success of MMissioner in the future. Thanks, Ronald. And now we have the honor to invite Professor Cao. Professor John Cao is currently the head of Biomedical Technology Cluster, Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. And he's also the chair professor of Translational Medical Engineering in the University of Hong Kong. Professor Cao has been awarded for over 40 grants, over 200 publications, and hold 5 patent families. So let me introduce Professor John Cao. And John Cao, I will give the stage to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Let me share my screen. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the association for the invitation and putting together such a meaningful event. So let me offer a bit of a slightly different perspective from the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. Okay. So when we talk about Hong Kong and we talk about GBA, it's very important for me to mention that to build up this MedTech ecosystem, we do need several critical elements. And these are elements that are fundamental to Hong Kong already. So these are great resources to advance MedTech in Hong Kong and obviously GBA. We know Hong Kong is a great financial center, so especially with the launch of Chapter 18A in pre-revenue IPO. In this case, it's also applicable to MedTech companies. This is definitely a place where investors and innovators come for fundraising. And talent, Ronald has already touched on talent. That's already another very critical component of Hong Kong. In terms of infrastructure, this is an area where Science Park is doing our part in building up the necessary infrastructures. But on top of that, we know that Hong Kong is a very critical logistics center that is important in the entire value chain of MedTech. IP protection, needless to say, Caroline already touched on this. This is absolutely critical. And market access, not only to GBA in mainland China, but also Southeast Asia, and which is a very vibrant, growing economy with a lot of healthcare needs. So Hong Kong is uniquely and well positioned to advance MedTech for itself as well as for the Greater Bay Area. So my talk will briefly touch on these four elements. The clinical trial centers here in Hong Kong, the public commitment in biotech as a priority area, and give everybody an overview of Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, HKSTP, and obviously how this all fits within the Greater Bay Area context. So Hong Kong has 8 publicly funded universities and 3 are ranked in the top 50. So this represents many important elements in a vibrant ecosystem, not only talent, source of talent, but also a source of creative ideas and innovation. And we have 2 clinical trial centers, and the data are recognized by the major regulators around the world in multiple subspecialties. So this is an area where Hong Kong is well positioned as a clinical trial center in the region for everything from phase 1 to phase 4. And in the recent years, Hong Kong government has made biotech and healthcare technology, including MedTech, a priority for the city, and resources have been poured into various sectors and agencies to facilitate this, including Science Park. And I will talk more about how Science Park is taking advantage of best use this public fund to strengthen the ecosystem, not only just for Hong Kong, but for the Greater Bay Area. And one thing to note is also the Hong Kong project. This is where local universities collaborate with international renowned universities to set up R&D centers in Science Park with 2 major themes. One is health and another is AI and robotics. So a little bit on what Hong Kong Science and Technology Park is and what we do. So we see ourselves as a platform that connects and collaborates with all the important stakeholders in the ecosystem, from the capital markets to companies, public agencies, as well as universities as source of startup companies, as well as talents and research institutes. Several research institutes are actually physically located in Science Park. And the double-headed arrow is actually significant because it means that we are actively participating in the activities of our partners. For example, we provide suggestions and comments when it comes to policies, and we work very closely with the capital markets, looking for opportunities, both in Hong Kong and in the Greater Bay Area, just to name a few. So a little bit about the BMT clusters in Science Park. It is one of the 5 clusters. It's not the biggest, and the number itself is probably not that impressive compared to other science parks in mainland China. But right now we have about 160 companies. But the impressive number comes when you consider 5 years ago, there were less than 30 companies in the BMT space. So it represents almost a 700% growth in a very short period of time. So clearly these companies seize opportunities in Science Park and in Hong Kong and to set up their R&D here. And we have companies that represent a very healthy mix of different technologies, from diagnostic to implants to pharmaceutics to ATPs, traditional Chinese medicine, and more we're starting to see food tech and nutraceuticals as well. So it reflects the industry very nicely in terms of interdisciplinarity and diversity and the breadth of biomedical technology. So in essence, we have companies that provide solutions along the patient journey. And this is the global mega trend, and looking at healthcare from prevention to diagnosis to treatments to monitoring and rehabilitation. And we all know this valley of death. Doesn't matter if you're doing drugs or devices, it takes a very long time with very high risk, lots of capital to turn basic idea research into clinical practice. And this is what we call the valley of death. For example, to get a new drug into the market takes more than $2 billion over a good 15 years. And medical devices is also equally challenging. So we see our job as helping company navigating this R&D journey from discovery to development to preclinical to clinical to market. And as they go through this development, the valuation of the company goes up. Obviously, the public benefit goes up and the risk of the technology decreases. So BMT Cluster and Science Park, we do see our mission to work with the companies throughout this entire R&D journey. So let me just very quickly go through some of what we offer. We have a 4-year incubation program that provides not only fundings, but shared facilities, regulatory support, and whole suite of services, including connecting with professional services, talent, and the capital market. And we know that to do biomedical technology R&D, you need heavy-duty, very expensive equipment. So we have a shared facility with state-of-the-art equipment, everything from genomics to proteomics. And we also have a shared co-working space to physically create that ecosystem. And Hong Kong doesn't have a lot of history in MedTech and biotech, so it doesn't traditionally have the critical large infrastructures that's needed for R&D, but we're changing that. Science Park has recently launched a biobank and a bioinformatics platform, and we are starting the construction of the first GLP drug safety center here in Hong Kong. And also we are almost completing the construction of a GMP facility for a ATP biologics. And recently we launched a very exciting program. I think perhaps Ronald and other audience member might be interested in this. This is called Clinical Translation Catalyst. We know how difficult it is for companies to make the transition from preclinical to clinical. So this is a new program that offers not only fundings, but advisory and regulatory planning for companies to navigate this important deflection point. And we also launched a program that facilitates and promotes co-creation. And this is an area where we want companies to collaborate to leverage their unique technologies, but also finding new solutions along the patient's journey. And I think this will be very much interested to a lot of the audience here. Hong Kong doesn't really have a authorized, accredited medical device testing lab, and Science Park is actually working really hard to set one up, and we're targeting a launch of this facility early next year. So as you know, for medical device to go through the R&D journey from research to prototyping to preclinical to production, along this entire R&D journey, there are several points where verification and validation tests are required. And right now, companies need to find partners to do this, and we're setting up one in Hong Kong, in Science Park, and this will really provide time saving as well as facilitate the R&D development of medical devices. And lastly, I just want to introduce, we have a health aging platform, and this is where we connect solution to solution seekers. So as you can imagine, medical device plays a very critical role in general tech, healthy aging, from softwares to assisted living to all sorts of aging related needs. And this is a platform we connect companies with end users like hospital authorities, clinics, NGOs, where we can help with solution adoption as well as identifying user requirements for these companies. And lastly, we have a corporate venture fund where Science Park actually actively invest in companies. We don't go in as the primary, but also the company use that to leverage additional funding. So in a nutshell, every $1 we put in a company, the company is able to generate $13. So that gives an incredible leveraging power for the company to take advantage of the capital market. So in a nutshell, we help companies to de-risk and facilitate their R&D with incubation programs, core instrumentation and co-working space, the biobank and the bioinformatics that just launched, drug safety centers that will be launched early next year, advanced therapeutic GMP facility for first-in-human studies that is about to go online, the medical device testing lab that we will start the construction fairly soon, as well as a new program to help company making that transition from preclinical to clinical. And once the company has solutions, we have the healthy aging platforms to connect solution seekers and solution providers, and the co-create program. And on top of that, talents, investments, regulatory service, and all sorts of things. So we believe the valley of death is no longer a valley, but very, very solid ground for companies to traverse and to expedite and facilitate their commercialization and hopefully their dreams come true. And lastly, I think the audience is very familiar with this already. So and I mentioned earlier, 5 years ago, there were about 30 biomedical companies, and today we have more than 160. So what's driving all that? Obviously, several things I already mentioned, but more and more companies are taking full advantage of the GBA. Again, not only the massive market and the growing healthcare need, but also manufacturing capabilities, as well as talents, as well as entry point to the larger mainland market. So this is really an exciting area. And this is also where Science Park is making GBA a priority. Recently, we are setting up an office in Futian, and another office in Science Park has been set up, committed just to look at opportunities in GBA. And I can share with you more of these examples during the Q&A session. So in a nutshell, Science Park, what do? Is we are facilitators, we're connectors, we create opportunities for all the major stakeholders, from startups to entrepreneurs to investors to talents to partners. And I think it's truly a very exciting time to be doing biotech and medtech in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong being part of the GBA community. So thank you once again, David, for the great honor and the opportunity to join this wonderful panel. And here's my email. I checked my own email, so please feel free to get in touch with me should any of this be of any interest to anybody. So I look forward to the productive Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor Cao. A very good presentation. HKSTP is a multidisciplinary hub that harnesses cutting-edge research to innovate and educate in the MedTech area. So thanks a lot. So now we have the honor to introduce our moderator, Dr. Kevin Low, for the panel discussion. Kevin is the Senior Managing Director of Variant Medical System for Hong Kong, Korea, Southeast Asia. Kevin is also a Fellow of Chartered Institute of Marketing and a Global Charter Marketer. He holds a doctoral degree in health science and a master degree of science in biomedical and an MBA. So Kevin, I would like to pass on the stage to you and for you to lead our panel discussion. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep, thank you, David, and thanks for all the profound speakers, okay, for their sharing, okay, about the landscape of the MedTech innovation and ecosystem in the Greater Bay Areas. And folks, okay, on the phone or on the Zoom, okay, please feel free to drop any question, okay, to the Q&A section so that we can file your questions. So KY, okay, so we have a question, okay, actually put it in the Q&A session earlier on, right? So a attendee mentioned that, okay, if a patent application has been filed with the USPO, will there be any protections in Hong Kong and China if they do exhibition there before the patent has been confirmed?
The answer is no, all right, because as I explained earlier on is that you have to take a Chinese patent to get it protected in China. But what you have done is the right thing, all right, by filing in the USA, basically you are stopping all other people to file a patent based on your innovation in China, for example, or in Hong Kong. All right, so you need to look at other ways to protect your innovations. And perhaps, you see, if you were to file your patent through the PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, and within like, you know, a year or 18 months or so, you are also filing it in China, all right, then it gives you a Chinese protection, if I put it that way. But you have done it correctly by filing it in USA or in any country before you market it or before you talk about it. That's the right thing to do. Because sometimes it's very challenging to choose where to patent it because there are so many countries. Which market matters to you, right? So it is a difficult decision, right? But it should be based on market potential consideration.
Yeah, thanks, KY. Okay, so I think there's another question. Okay, so it's more to Professor Gao. Okay, so the question was, okay, how MedTech, okay, startup and or even established companies can fit within the GPA ecosystem with the help of the Hong Kong STP. You mentioned that, okay, there is an office being set up, and so what exactly we can get help?
Yeah, they're actually a great question. I really appreciate it. There are actually several things that Science Park is already doing to help companies and take full advantage of GBA. I mentioned there's a new office that just set up in Futian, basically that acts as a point of contact bilaterally. So for example, if you're a Science Park company and you're looking for prototyping partners, this would be a kind of a liaison office that will help you make that kind of connection. And internally, Science Park also set up a GBA office to help coordinate some of our programs that I mentioned and to make sure that the park companies take full advantage of that. And on top of that, we also have built collaborations with other Science Park in Greater Bay Area, for example, Bio Island, Shenwudao. Obviously, that is a good partner for us, as well as multinationals that have a physical presence in Greater Bay Area, including Merck and King Med. And for example, we have a co-incubation program with King Med. That's a medical diagnostic company with a very impressive network of not just sales, but R&D activities, and really knows how to navigate the mainland environment. So that joint program, it really helps the companies to take advantage and to understand the mainland situation. So these are just some of the examples that we stand ready to help companies to take full advantage of GPA.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gao. Okay, so another question. Okay, so we talk about GBA a lot, and is GBA a good nurturing ground for the innovative MedTech companies, and how we can leverage this platform to enter the Chinese market? So I think Dr. Ronald, okay, would you mind to take that up? Oh, Ronald, probably you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to answer this question. For me, I think Greater Bay offer a very good opportunity for, as in particular for Hong Kong startup to enter the China market. So I think the strength, according to my working experience, I think one of the strengths that Hong Kong has is the research ability, and also, I mean, in particular in the R&D area. So Hong Kong has much better engineer in advanced R&D. But how to commercialize the product, or how to standardize the product, or productization. This is something that I think is still not very efficient in Hong Kong. But for our team, we can find very good software engineers in Shenzhen, where they can write product code in an efficient way and also a very economical way. So I think Shenzhen already provides a very good platform for the software development. And as I have mentioned before, if you for the hardware manufacturing, then Dongguan and other places in Greater Bay Area did have a very efficient and responsive supply chain. I make an example that for our surgical robotics, I mean for the case or for the hardware, we can upgrade our hardware designs like 2 to 3 versions within 1 month, because of you can see how responsive these supplier can be. They can actually produce 1 new version of the hardware prototype within 1 week. So, and it's also specifically for us. So you can see that this is very encouraging, because for MedTech company, you always needed to prototype things fast. So I think Greater Bay Area offer this very good opportunity. So finally, is that I think if we wanted to put our product into the market in China, so you have to communicate with the hospitals. So in particular, hospitals in Guangzhou is very well established, even in the whole China. So I think it is a base that can allow the MedTech company to work with and then to promote their product to the nationwide. So that's a conclusion is that I think Greater Bay Area offered all the things that you need to start in MedTech. But the thing is how you can understand or you know people around this area so that you can combine them together like an orchestra, and then you can play the music you want. So I think this needs some more time. You have to work around and know people. So one thing for startup after the technology and every strategy, I think networking is super, super important in the mainland China.
Thank you, Ronald. So I think IP, has been being mentioned in multiple times by multiple speakers already. And KY, there's a question that, how we should manage our IP protection within the GBA, which consists of different jurisdictory systems around the area. So may you try to give us some insight there?
Right. I think the simple answer is that it's based on the market potential, right? If you see China as a market, then you file a patent in China, all right? So I think unless you are getting some government grant, for example, with the conditions that you have to apply a patent in, say, Hong Kong or Macau, that is a different story. So if you have only budget, all right, for filing a patent in one authority, that will be the CNIPA. It's pretty obvious, all right? And if you have surplus budget, probably you should consider USA or Europe or Japan, all right? So that will be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, KY. Okay, so I think there's another question. Okay, so open to the panelists. Okay, so it is what are the key success factors or challenges? Okay, for the MedTech startups to be flourished in the GBA areas. Okay, who wants to take that up? Maybe Philip. Okay, from your previous experience as the head of technology in KPMG.
Yeah, maybe share some of the experience or insights on what we saw, in particular regarding those cross-border startups from Hong Kong trying to go into the China market and vice versa. I think the first important thing is try to know the market and the business model for China or the Hong Kong. That can be quite different. For example, if you got a good product for the overseas market, that does not mean that it would equally sell well in the China market. You need to dig into more details on how the business model will be working in China. For example, you are directly selling to the hospital, or you actually need to go through the channel to sell to the hospital. So this kind of market research is very important for startup before they even step in across the border into the new market. So that's the first tips that you need to giving to the entrepreneurs for those who want to do the cross border and step into a new market. Also, the user requirement, and also in particular the competitive landscape, you need to map out quite in details before you launch your product, including all the pricing strategy, etc. So this, I think, is the first critical success factor before you start or expand your business into a new market. The second, for example, for a Hong Kong startup, if you want to go into the China market, the location is also very important. Just as some of our panelists mentioned, actually different cities or even different zones within the same city has different policies or incentive. So you need to pick the most appropriate one, so such that you can enjoy the best benefit for growing your business in China. The second also you need to consider is the talent pool, in particular in the biotech or the MedTech area, which we believe that the ecosystem is very important. For example, if you are doing the drug discovery or research, you need to pick an area with the most abundant corporates or startups in that area, such that you can enjoy the benefit or sharing the insight and know-how with the ecosystem players. So the second tips is on the selection of the location. The third tips is that you need to find a local partner or a local investor which can help you with your expansion in China. So in particular, for example, if you're looking for investments, I would suggest that on top of those financial investors, you can look into those corporate VCs. For example, if you are doing the medical device area, try some of those leading corporates like Micray or some Xinchanye. For example, all these leading tier 1 device manufacturers in Shenzhen area. So they will not only give you the money, but they will also help you to carve out all the challenges for you to market on your product. So these are the 3 tips I would give to the entrepreneurs for crossing the border. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. So any other panelists, okay, you have any insights to share on this?
Yeah, I think Philip's raised very good 3 tips that how to go to the MedTech products in China. I think a very super important is the channel or marketing strategy. But for the third point that working with the big firms in China, I have some experience. It's a little bit not easy for startup to work with these big companies because there are 2 things. If your product is quite similar to theirs, they will simply not interest. If it's some products that they are really interested, they may try to understand how to do it, do a lot of due diligence even, and then they will do it themselves. This is something I think you cannot avoid because according to our experience, sometimes there are big companies coming to do due diligence, and we a little bit cautious on this. So I think this is 2-way. You can have to be a little bit more cautious when you try to cooperate with the big companies.
Okay, thank you. So due to the limitation of the time, okay, let me ask the last question. Okay, So say, for instance, okay, Hong Kong STP had successfully established its foothold in Hong Kong already. And how can we replicate her success, okay, in GBA? Professor Gao, any insights?
Yeah, thank you. Let me just make a quick comment on the previous point. I know finding local partners, whether it's investors or large companies as R&D partners in mainland is very challenging. It's very critical as well. And that's why Science Park has set up that office. Like I said, it's a liaison office. And because, we're nonprofit, we're a statutory body, we play a nice third-party connectors. And that's the role that we would like to continue to do more in. And I think, Kevin, to your last question, I don't know success. We're very happy with what we've been doing, and obviously the results speak for itself. But there's still a lot more that we can do and we will do. Infrastructure project is only one of them that I speak about. But it's also working with the Greater Bay Area partners in terms of sharing experiences and building that trust. Like several, Phillips, I think, mentioned that different cities have different policies and different incentives. And for a small company, how are you going to know all this, right? Who are you going to trust to find out what fits? So Science Park wants to play more active role in finding out what will fit for what company, but more yet is to play a role in policy making in terms of how do we harmonize all these opportunities. So the major 11 cities in Greater Bay are not fighting each other and stepping over each other, but really leverage their unique advantages. I think that is the next phase of GBA development is how to harmonize, how to leverage, and how to optimize. That's just my observation.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gao. So I think that may conclude today's panel discussions. Okay, so I will pass back the stage to David. Okay, David, hand over to you.
Thank you. And again, thanks all of the speaker. And before ending this session, I just want to make a slight announcement because I missed out two of the very important supporting organizations in my introduction earlier. They are Invest Hong Kong and also Hong Kong Elderly Welfare Foundation. All these supporting organization has been very helpful in helping us to make this series of free webinars be available. Now we come to an end regarding the webinar with respect to the different aspect of MedTech development in the Greater Bay Area. Please follow us, Greater Bay Area MedTech Association at LinkedIn. We will roll out more activities, which including, but not limited to, webinar, symposium, training, focus topic seminars, certificate program. We are also planning to have our website go live very soon. Thanks again to our honorable speakers, panel discussion moderator, and audience. Have a nice weekend. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.